What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. And if you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I put a brand new video. Now, before I get into this video, I want to say this is the off season where nothing is happening, right? This is the most boring part of the off season to be a football fan. So, I can come up with, topics to talk about every single day. I'm totally fine with doing that. I can do player analysis, fantasy football projections, all those types of things and analyze every single player. But if there's anything that you guys ever want me to talk about, please let me know, because I want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. If you guys don't want to hear about me talking about why Malik Harrison will make his strides, getting into, the linebacker 2 spot on the Ravens roster, that's fine. Just let me know what you guys want me to hear in the comment section down below. If you're watching on, on YouTube, obviously the comments. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a review and ask the question on Apple Podcasts, or if you're in the airtime, please send it on there. You can also DM me on Twitter, anything. I want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. So with that said, let's get into today's video. Now, first off, I want to give a shout out to Clifton Brown from BaltimoreRavens.com, and he wrote an article talking about Devin Duvernay, really wanting and believing that he's earned, or at least trying to earn that starting wide receiver 2 role. So I wanted to give a shout out to him, because he was the one that kind of brought the idea to my attention. And I'm not going to be talking about him wanting it. I'm going to be talking about the feasibility of him actually becoming it, which is a little bit different of an angle. So overall, Devin Duvernay is obviously the Baltimore Ravens return man. He's the punt returner and he is the kick returner, and he's pretty darn good at it. But he was drafted not to be a return specialist. He was drafted to be, honestly, I felt like he was drafted to be a slot wide receiver. But overall, he was drafted to be a wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens and a playmaker with the ball in his hands. He started off his career in 2020, and he did not get to have a preseason, a training camp, or anything like that to really work with Lamar Jackson. So it was a little bit difficult. Took him a little while. Ended up getting 20 receptions for 200 yards. It wasn't a bad rookie season. He was behind a lot of people on the depth chart. But then the next year, was riddled with injuries. He had 33 receptions for 272 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns. And the biggest thing that he had last year was a spectacular play with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson against the Minnesota Vikings threw a pass that only Devin Duvernay could make, that play. And he makes that reception. And that right there, those are the types of plays where it shows that special connection. Because Lamar put it, behind the defender, in the pocket where only Duvernay could get it. And he actually made that play. And that was the play where I was like, I recognized, okay, like it's starting at least. Now, Devin Duvernay, I can actually see becoming a legitimate wide receiver for this team. A wide receiver weapon, rather than just a special teams player, because I saw the potential that he had. Now, I understand that I think Devin Duvernay may be the fastest player on the Ravens roster when it comes to top speed. There's a couple of guys in the conversation. Lamar's obviously in there, but there's a couple of guys. But Duvernay is one of the fastest players on the roster. And could he be a deep threat? Potentially. He can get behind the defense. But I see him as a get him the football type of player, underneath routes, slot routes, because he has good hands. That was the thing about him coming out of college, him and Prochet, was that they don't drop the ball. Prochet was the jump ball wide receiver, and Duvernay was the slot wide receiver that was also utilized in the backfield. But, for me, I really do think Duvernay can end up being, wide receiver 2 for the Ravens. Whether that's him playing in the slot or playing on the outside is besides the point, in my opinion. I feel like he's going to be there, but he can really be. I compared him to DEVO Samuel when he got drafted. I compared him to DEVO Samuel after his rookie year. I continue to compare him to DEVO Samuel. Now, DEVO has taken, astronomical leaps in his game and has now become one of the best weapons in the NFL. But overall, they have similar skill sets, right? Are they the greatest route runners? No, but they have good hands, and they are extremely physical with the ball. All right? Duvernay has a little bit more speed. He's got but I think Deebo's a little bit more physical than him. But overall, they're very similar in terms of play style. And if the Ravens can use Duvernay, like how the 49ers used Deebo Samuel in a different way than they did at the end of the year. In the last 5 or 6 games, Deebo became running back 1 for the Niners, and he got kind of frustrated with that because he doesn't want to play running back. He wants to play wide receiver because he understands running back, doesn't last as long in the NFL. And that's why all the trade rumors came out and things like that, was because he was kind of upset. He was like, hey, I'm a wide receiver. I'm the best wide receiver on this team. Why are you playing me at running back? So he was upset at that. But overall, the thing about Deebo Samuel is get him the football. And they throw him on underneath routes. They throw him on 10-yard outs. They throw him on all these routes that can just get him the ball and allow him to get into open space. And that is something that I see Devin Duvernay trying to do. All right? Whether it's throwing screen passes to him, and I understand it's very, very frustrating sometimes when half the times Devin Duvernay comes onto the offensive side of the ball, it's for a jet sweep. I think we should still use him in jet sweeps and things of that nature, but they should also use him as a primary wide receiver for this team, because he is somebody that could be a 500 to 700 yard type of player for the Baltimore Ravens, and that's not to be a bad thing. The Ravens aren't going to get a lot of yards through the air to their, number 2, 3, 4 wide receivers, right? Most of it's going to go to Bateman, and it's going to go to Mark Andrews and the other tight ends. That's where Lamar Jackson, that's where Greg Roman, that's where this offense, kind of brings its yardage. But, an explosive playmaker can still be very helpful to the offense. And I'm going to pull up Deebo Samuel's rookie stats to kind of give the hope, that maybe Duvernay could have that type of impact. And even he doesn't have to be this far. But Deebo Samuel came in and had 800 receiving yards his rookie year. 800 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 159 rushing yards. Those are the types of things where he came into a system, and they're very different systems. Deebo Samuel's playing with Kyle Shanahan, the master of designing plays to get players open. Duvernay's playing with Greg Roman, who's the opposite of Kyle Shanahan, really. But overall, he was able to be utilized and was effective. And he didn't get a lot of praise after his rookie year. And then he got hurt the next season. And then he came back 1,400 yards last year and also 8 rushing touchdowns. So overall, massive improvements. But Devin Duvernay can come out there and be effective, okay? When we look at Rashad Bateman last season, and I have to pull up all these stats every time I name a player, Rashad Bateman was very impactful on the team. He only had 500 receiving yards. But when he was out there, he was incredibly impactful on the way that the games went. If Duvernay can be like that, and Bateman can become the number 1, and I said on our live stream last night that I think Bateman's going to be the number 1 pass catcher on the Ravens this year over Mark Andrews. That would allow for a combination of those 3 players, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, and Devin Duvernay. I think the 3 of them can have around 2,500, maybe 2,700 total yards receiving. That would be very, very good for this Baltimore Ravens offense. If 3 players can put up 2,500 to 2,700 yards, Lamar Jackson probably throws for 3,500 to 4,000 yards, right? That's about 1,300 yards extra for the backup tight ends, the running backs, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, all of those players. But overall, I think they will put up 2,500 to 2,700 yards. And that's allowing for, I don't think Devin Duvernay is the deep threat, or I'll say primary deep threat. Can he get deep threat passes? Absolutely. He may beat the defense for a couple of deep play touchdowns. But overall, I see him more as a consistent over-the-middle type of player, more like a Deebo Samuel, who can have explosive big plays, than a guy like Hollywood Brown was for the Ravens, where he was the, explosive plays are over the top, he can get some underneath catches and not really take it the distance. I think it would be more similar to Deebo than Hollywood. So overall, I think Devin Duvernay can be wide receiver 2 for this team. Whether that's him lining up in the slot or on the outside is kind of irrelevant in my opinion, because I feel like he's going to be effective. He's going to be used over the middle of the field as an explosive playmaker for this team. Guys, let me know what you were thinking about Devin Duvernay. Can he be wide receiver 2? What are his numbers going to look like? Please let me know your thoughts. If you have any topics you want me to talk about, because there isn't really a lot of Ravens news going on, please let me know. The airtime link is in the description below. If you guys want to check out the TTB merch, you can check that out in the description as well. But thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe for Daily Ravens content, and I will see all of you again.